everyone, welcome back to On the Flip Side. My name is Adam Shawwalker, your host, and today we're going to be checking out this new Jungle Rot album, A Call to Arms. Jungle Rot has been one of these death metal bands that I've been pretty well aware of for a pretty long time now, but I've never really gotten too deep into their discography. Their debut album, Skin the Living, is, in my opinion, one of the best death metal albums of its time, and its follow-up, Slot of the Week, is pretty good too. But past that, I didn't really listen to too much else. No one I've met is particularly into Jungle Rot, and I can kind of see why after listening to this new album. These songs blend together like a lot. They're generally kind of bland, a little bit uncreative, and by definition, I guess, they're heavy, but it's kind of meaningless if the tracks aren't really all that worth listening to in the first place. I'm also having a bit of a difficult time getting past this vocalist. Every track this guy is spitting out some of the worst vocals that I've heard in death metal that aren't coming from Chris Barnes. I think one of the main issues that this band has at this point in their careers is that they don't really commit to any big ideas, and while that could be okay, it's not really trying to fit into like an old school death metal thing, but I don't really know what they're trying to do here. There's that new school style of death metal and like the stuff that they're kind of, stuff that's pushing the boundaries, stuff like Blood Incantation or even Primitive Man or Spectral Voice, Sanguisugabog. There's also a lot of modern examples of like old school death metal like Undeath. I just don't really know what they're trying to go for here. It doesn't really fit into either camp. Like, it's an old school death metal band that's just not doing it. Like, they're trying to update their sound, but it's not in any kind of way that pushes anything far enough. It doesn't really have any grasp on anything that is modern or fresh. It's just kind of stagnant. At the very least, there is some okay riff work. The mix sounds okay, but every other track kind of sounds like people who know how to play their instruments well, just not really putting any effort into the writing. And again, through the album, as it goes on, track by track, the vocalist sounds more and more like all of the worst parts of like Randy Blythe's vocal delivery. It just seems like what they're trying to do and what they're trying to land in, this like modern death metal camp that is already being like done better by newer, fresher bands. And honestly, that's not to say that there isn't anything of merit here, but most of the hyper-violent themes that this album and a lot of the modern Jungle Rot records toy with are actively being done better by like slam bands and brutal death metal bands. If you're looking for bands that are putting out really good, heavy material, then look no further than like Cerebral Incubation or like Waking the Cadaver. And I understand where this album's coming from, but I find this whole release and a lot of this band's modern stuff to be fairly redundant. Kind of reminds me a lot of like the modern albums from like Exodus or Testament, though in those cases those bands still seem to have at least some kind of audience that they're continuing to manage to reach. I think really the only tracks here that are kind of worth listening to are the last two tracks on the album, and that's Total Extinction and Population Suicide, both of which are fairly mid-tier death metal tracks, but at least seem to try a little bit more than some of the other songs here, all of which are very limited by an extreme lack of experimentation or general creativity. This album is kind of interesting to me because this death metal band is kind of having the same problem that a lot of like modern thrash bands have, in that all of the classics have kind of already been written at this point. This is a genre that in the hands of an older generation is mostly dead in the water. This idea of being uncompromising and heavy till the end backs bands like this into a corner all the time until they end up being kind of largely forgotten because they don't really bring anything new to the table. It's honestly kind of sad. Like, I really like a lot of the old Jungle Rot stuff. I don't understand how you could lose so much steam. Anyway, it would be cool to see these guys put out something decent, but from the looks of it, this is kind of where they've been for the better part of like 2 decades now, so it's not exactly promising. Unfortunately, this one's a pretty firm 3. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what you thought of the album in the comments below, and remember to like, subscribe, and check out my Reverb store. My Depop and my Instagram links to those are in the description below. Thank you all so much again, and we'll see you on the flip side.